Welcome back from lunch, everyone. I hope you had a good break away from your screen and feel refreshed and ready for the afternoon sessions. I had a great lunch and I even had time to make this star. If you look in your welcome packet, there is an origami star that you can make with instructions. I haven't done origami since like middle school or high school, so this was fun. And also make sure that you're looking at your bingo card still. Remember when you get your first 5 in a row to let us know in the chat. Now, to kick off our afternoon, I'd like to welcome back Joanne Mills and Sarah Anderson from Campbell and Company, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and access sponsor for today's conference. Let's roll that clip. Thank you, Joanne and Sarah. And now, please welcome our next presenters for Leveraging Organizational Longevity, Stories from 5+ years in the trenches. Speakers, as I am reading your bio, please join me on stage so we can see you. Allison Rabbit is the Director of Development for Seattle Opera. She leads the team that recently completed the $62 million campaign to build the company's new civic home at Seattle Center. She raises over $10 million annually so that this deeply collaborative art form can be created and shared with the community. Welcome, Allison. Anna O'Donnell has served as Director of Development at the Burke Museum since 2007. In her lengthy tenure at the museum, she increased annual giving significantly and led the $107 million campaign for the new Burke. After a decade of planning and building, the new flagship museum opened in October 2019. Welcome, Anna. Savitha Reddy Patti has been Deputy Director of Climate Solutions since June 2019, previously serving as Development Director since January 2010. Savitha has been recognized with the 40 Under 40 Award from the Puget Sound Business Journal. In 2018, she served on the fundraising team for the Yes on 1631 campaign, helping raise over $15 million to take on big oil. Welcome, Savitha. Margaret Sue works on the University of Washington's brand strategy team as the Assistant Director for Advancement Marketing and Communications. Previously, she was the Deputy Director of Institutional Giving and Marketing at the Wing Luke Museum, where she worked for 12 years, leading development and marketing efforts in its growth and transition from a $23 million capital campaign to its current expanded location. Welcome. This session will be facilitated by Lillian Ballesteros. Lillian is the Executive Director of the Latino Community Fund of Washington State, supporting Latino-led organizations throughout Washington State through leadership development, civic engagement, and access to healthcare resources. Welcome, Allison, Anna, Savitha, Margaret, and Lillian. And I'll let you all take it away.
So much, Lauren. Thank you everybody for coming back from lunch. I know we were all in the other room together and it was great to see you at the tables. And so thank you for joining us in this other space. I am so excited today that I get to share this space with such incredible leaders. But before we kind of get started, we had all talked about wanting to just take a moment. We know it's post-lunch. We know you've been sitting in the ballroom for the last few hours. And so we wanted to just bring in a little bit of a physical component to the space. And so just for about a minute, we're thinking for those who can and choose to, doing a little bit of stretching. And so I'm just gonna stand.
Oh, well, when Lillian comes back, let's stand up or whatever is comfortable, whatever feels good to you. And just get your body moving a little bit. Stretch out. Those are not my pajama pants, although they look like they yeah, Savitha, good idea.
Yeah, and take some deep breaths. And just stretch our necks. Yeah. And so just getting us back from lunch, a little movement. I know sometimes others may also have this spending, 7 hours sitting in front of a computer. And so just taking a moment sometimes is helpful. And actually that really works well with today as we're talking about longevity in our fields, right? And what we need to keep going. So again, thank you to the panel. We'll go around with an initial question, but to get started, this conversation kind of came out of the Underdeveloped report that came out in 2013. For those who are familiar with it, we'll also be sending it after the conference as a resource. But it was a study with about over 2,700 executive directors and development directors, really talking about the challenges facing nonprofit fundraising, specifically the challenges for development directors in the field. Really thinking about the revolving door. I know that some may have gone through that door. I know some have heard of it. This revolving door around the development director position. Really, having a pool of development professionals to be available for these positions. And how to really think about the lack of fundraising success, what the impact has when we are not able to stay in our positions, that impact on the organizations and vice versa. And so that was really a grounding that all the panelists had read and was really kind of the spark for this. And so, wanting to jump in, really this is about hearing from you all on your journey is what we had talked about. And this initial giving us the sense of your own journey, where you started to where you are now, really thinking about any questions around staff turnover, budget size, and what's also kept you staying in the field or in your position. And so we'll start with Allison. We'd love to hear kind of how your journey has taken you.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to focus my journey on Seattle Opera because it's only been a little over 6 years, but it's pretty juicy. So, and we only have 3 minutes for this part. So I started at Seattle Opera in February 2014, Director of Development for Individual Giving, managing a team of 6 fundraisers, nestled within a development team of 18 total. And the scale was larger than any org I had worked for before. Fundraising goals were 600% bigger than previous positions I'd held. I remember my first day feeling so much excitement because it had been a lengthy courtship, and I was just ready to start and help make change at this organization. And the team hadn't had a manager for about 6 months, so they were also eager for me to start. I think that helped a lot. The company was in the middle of a major leadership transition with the first general director change in 3 decades. There was also a major effort underway to relaunch a capital campaign that was put on ice from the fall of 2008, because we all know what that was like. So what attracted me to the position was the chance to be a part of the revolution of this arts organization and to work with development's top leaders in the field, Lisa Bury, Campbell and Company, and many of my colleagues, present and former, who are at this conference right now. I was a development generalist. I started my career fresh out of college as a development associate and worked as an events manager, grant writer, grants administrator, individual giving manager, and then director of development. I was ready to grow in different ways, and I knew from my director of development experience, I did not want to be a director of development again, and for many of the reasons that were addressed in Underdeveloped. This position gave me the opportunity to be a part of a dynamic team and focus solely on relationships. So the fundraising work, managing people, and return to the arts and culture sector where my heart is. So here I am 6 years later. We're in the building that many people didn't believe would be completed. There's been another general director change. The team has changed almost completely with the exception of myself and another team member, Catherine Merlot. There are now 3 positions that are shared with marketing, and there are 14 positions on the development team with this is the heartbreaking part. 5 of those positions currently furloughed due to the pandemic. And I became director of development 2 years ago, which has pushed me emotionally and physically. And, through the difficulty of this pandemic, I am actually noticing a major shift in the company and the organization in terms of how folks outside of the development team and how they talk about fundraising. I've tried throughout my tenure to be direct about the long, slow, sometimes difficult work of relationship fundraising. And I've been hearing my colleagues say things like, relationship matters. Could we find a sponsor for this? And, that's really gratifying. That's due to the collective effort and the dedication of this team in every iteration to really change the culture. And I'm really proud of that. And that's my journey in a nutshell. So.
Thank you so much, Allison. Yeah, definitely that long work of relationship building, very much. And I hear so much sentiment that I think a lot of people share along that journey. Anne, I would love to hear your journey and, getting with the Burke and how this, works for you, how that's been.
Thank you, Lillian. And Allison, I loved hearing your story. I haven't heard it in that much detail, but I think that's the value of these conversations, is hearing from each other and pulling what we can and learning. So I've been at the Burke for 14 years. I just had an anniversary, and it's shocking because I'd never been in a job longer than 2 years before this. And I certainly never came into it thinking that I would stay so long. So I moved here from New York in 2006, and I knew I wanted to do museum fundraising after grad school. And so I applied, and I got ignored a lot of places. And the Burke was the first place I got a job, and it was as annual fund coordinator. And basically, we just had a new ED a year before, and she was building capacity in preparation for a new Burke. And so she had basically demanded a development director and another development staff member as part of her sign-on contract as executive director. So I started 2006, and basically when I started, the team was tiny. It was myself, the development director, a half-time membership person, a part-time grant writer. That was it. And we had a brand new board, just started our 501c3 board like 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier. And the fundraising had been super modest. There was no major gifts program, loyal donors, like a small group of loyal donors, but they'd never been asked to step up. The fundraising event was really a fundraiser. There was like a little ask, a little under the centerpiece kind of ask at the end. I think it raised like $7,000. So immediately there was just great opportunity for growth. The development director left 9 months after I started, and I was happily able to move into that position. And I was ready. I mean, we'd been building together, and again, there was nowhere to go but up. And so much capacity building was happening and conversations about the new Burke. And I just fell in love. I'm an arts person. I'm a recovering artist. I never thought I'd end up at a natural history museum. But it's really been that part of the mission which has kept me there. And largely, I would say the big, juicy campaign and capital project. And basically, you can't do anything fast when you're at a giant research university and you're the State Museum. And so the journey just took a long time. And I would say major factors in keeping me there were just my commitment to that project and the opportunity to be part of something really big and transformational. And, we're a startup now. Like we're 130 plus years old, but we're really starting fresh again. And it was that opportunity to just pave a new path and be part of that leadership team. I will say what's kept me there. We have a great ED, and we're married. We have a really strong relationship, and it's been an honor to have a seat at the table and help make something really big happen. And just start to finish journey-wise in terms of the team swelled to about 9 during the height of the campaign. And now we're back down to a modest 5 people on the team. And that was intentional. So it's been a tremendous amount of change. Unlike Allison, I'm the only person who's been here on my team the entire time. So I've seen a lot of change and managed through a lot of change.
Thank you so much. I love hearing, the different journeys. I saw somebody put that in the comment. I love hearing that because, being with the Burke that long, but kind of these different phases with the organization, which is just so interesting, and being able to kind of stick through this campaign. So thank you. Margaret, I'd love to hear more from you. We're sticking with UW here and, geographically in similar locations, and love to hear kind of how your journey and what has kept you in the field.
Yeah, and my time at the UW, it's only been about 1.5 years, so that doesn't qualify as 5+ years in the UW trenches. So I'm going to be talking mostly about my time at the Wing Luke Museum. And it's kind of funny, Anna and I had a lot of parallels. I moved back from the East Coast in 2006 as well. And, there I had seen sort of development professionals jump from, job to job, either because of the pressure or because that was the way to get promoted. So, I sort of came in with that mentality. And I started at the Wing Luke Museum 2007. So after all that kind of moving around, I was really ready to settle down with an organization. And I think I was lucky to find the museum because it turned out to have sort of what I needed to stay there long term. And I'll say Anna and I started around the same time, but she's still at the Burke and I'm no longer at the Wing Luke Museum. So in some ways, I'm not the poster child for longevity anymore, but I think, it kind of provides an interesting perspective and reflections on the value of longevity. As you all know, we don't do this for the work. So the 3 things that really drew me to the museum, and taking a job there and what kept me there was first and foremost the mission. The museum's mission of empowering and elevating underrepresented Asian Pacific American voices, preserving culture and history, educating the public with a social justice lens. That was an easy sell for me. That was an easy hook. The second thing was really that opportunity of growth, kind of like what Anna was saying, that big juicy challenge, a chance to make things better. When I took the job as the new grants manager then, the museum was in the middle of a capital campaign with about 1 year left. Everybody was really, really tired. And we were located in an old, dingy, converted auto garage with leaky ceilings that wasn't meant to be a museum. So it wasn't the facilities that sold me on the job. It was the vision of taking the museum out of the rundown garage and into an amazing 60,000 square foot space that would really elevate and make it an opportunity for the museum to be a world-class anchor for the Asian Pacific American community. So that undertaking and vision, even though daunting, was exciting. And then the third thing for me was the people. And, you don't always know exactly what team you're getting into, a little bit when you interview, but it turned out to be an amazing team of really passionate and hardworking staff and leadership, and a highly supportive board, as Savitha knows how great they are because she's on the board. And there was something about the staff, I feel like, it's kind of intangible, that the staff are really good at making people feel welcome, whether you're a new staff person or even, translating that to welcoming sort of first-time non-Asian Pacific American visitors. There was something about that welcoming element. And then also working at a place that was not white dominated and was led by people of color and women, that also added to the feeling of belonging, especially when you're working in such a white field like philanthropy. So, so as I was reflecting about this whole idea of longevity, it was interesting to me that, it wasn't about metrics or about anything specific to fundraising that really drew me to stay, I guess I would say, like donor pyramids and donor segmentation. Notice I just threw in some bingo words, conference bingo words. Those didn't enter my mind, related to this conversation. It was really acknowledging that fundraising can be a grind. It's hard, it's complicated, it's never ending. And so if you're there for the long haul, there's going to be years that are great. and moments that are going to be great for fundraising, and there's going to be some really difficult moments. And so that's all sort of part of the journey. But if you have these three elements of sort of your guiding light, the mission, the hope and possibility for something better and opportunity, and then that right team of people who have your back, I feel like that's what helped help me face the challenges of weather the ups and downs in the long haul. And the final thing I'll say about that, it was interesting as I was reflecting about that was sort of, putting on my marketing hat, that's sort of what all the components to sort of a story for the hero's journey, a storyteller. Like, you want a great team, you want a mission and guiding light, and then you want this chance for like a better future. So that's really what kept me there.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I really appreciate you bringing out the piece around the people and the team, and that, really finding space there, because I think that's so key. And thank you for the bingo words. I think people are also loving that. Thanks. Savitha, I would love to hear, your journey, kind of, where and now we're here. So.
Of course, and I don't know why I volunteered to go last after all you three amazing, talented friends and professionals. And Margaret, it was so awesome to overlap with you while you were at the wing. So a great institution. So I think like many of us, I'm an accidental fundraiser. My first job out of college was I worked at on climate policy during the Kyoto Protocol, something I stumbled into an internship through a college connection, and I wanted to be a policy wonk, and ended up moving to Seattle and totally getting into a new field thanks to a job at Mount Campbell and Company. And in 2009, lost my dream job, emailed my grantees at Climate Solutions and was like, oh, hey, I would love to talk to you about any kind of opportunities that you have. And they all, unbeknownst to me, were like, oh, great, she can be our new development director. But nobody said that to me, and, was on unemployment for a while and looking for work. And I wish someone would have just let me know that before December of 2009. So I started at Climate Solutions in a development director role in January of 2010, had never had a leadership role in fundraising, had been part of the team, but had never reported directly to the executive director before. And that was something very important to me, that at that point in my career, whatever job I took, I knew I wanted to stay in the sector in some way, but whatever job I took, it was very important to me to be at the leadership table and be part of those strategy conversations and to report directly to the executive director. And something else was the former development director is our current events director. So she has been at Climate Solutions now for all of our 22-year history, but it was a bit intimidating walking into a new role for me and managing the person who had the job before me. And then I went to the underdeveloped report presentation and was like, oh my God, I've got 2 years before I lose my team. And what am I going to do? So I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep them. And so really figuring out with my team, and they are both still there. Owen Atkins, who's our grants manager that many of you in the AFP world know, and Teresa Myers, who's our events director. And we have since added to the team that, it's unbelievable that our entire development team has been there for, the majority of us over 10 years. And our newest person has been there for 6 years now in our fundraising team. So that's a testament, I think, to a lot of things that we do right at Climate Solutions about valuing our employees, and also the work that the team and I do together to be really collaborative as a development team. The growth that's happened since I've been there, we've gone from a $2 million organization to a $4 million organization. We worked on a C3 ballot initiative campaign back in 2018 called the Yes on 1631 campaign. It was putting a price on carbon pollution. As Lauren said in the intro, we raised $15 million to take on big oil. Big oil wrote some big checks and, to lie and to win at the ballot box. But we do know that, climate policy the majority of Americans believe in climate change, thank God. The majority of Americans believe in climate policy. Joe Biden's climate policy is based on Jay's climate policy, which is based on 1631's climate policy. So we have had impacts, even if we didn't win in November of 2018. And in December of 2018, I basically just said to my boss, like, I need a new role. I like fundraising, but I want to grow, and there's no place to grow in an organization that's only about 20 people, and I don't want to be the executive director. Having been a foundation program officer, I just knew that was not what I wanted in my career. I wanted to be a little bit more behind the scenes and really doing organizational development and organizational culture work, which is how we came up with this deputy role. So basically what it means at Climate Solutions is externally, I manage our fundraising team and the team that helps raise the budget. And then internally, really working on organizational effectiveness, like our program planning, our program evaluation, and also ways to improve our organizational culture, which obviously has been challenging now in a pandemic. Like, we have 2 open offices, one in Portland, one in Seattle. We have staff who also work out of their homes in Olympia, but as a super collaborative organization, it's been challenging, and that is something that I am doing in my professional growth, is how to work on that. And then one thing that keeps me, or a couple things that keep me at Climate Solutions beyond our mission, I have been working on climate since 1997, over half my life. It really is our values around equity. It is our leading with the racial equity lens statement, and just bringing it back to some of the things that were said in the opening session and also the last session around authenticity and just, being anti-racist in our work. Like, that is what's going to keep me at Climate Solutions. Like, we have so much work to still be doing on our journey. But I'm glad to be at a place where that is supported, because I haven't always been at places that work has been supported.
Thank you so much, Saitha. Thank you for uplifting right there at the end that piece around values. It's so important. And I will say, I also was an accidental, I think, fundraiser who then became an accidental executive director. So I don't really know what my next accident is, but I guess it's all a learning journey. So, but appreciate just so much incredible leadership and hearing all of your journeys. And you all, really, I think, touched on pieces from the underdeveloped report, but I think, in general, this, coming into spaces where people had left the positions and, and shifting the revolving door, seeking those opportunities for leadership and seeing yourself in the work and opportunities to make an impact, not just on the fundraising, but in some cases with the organizational culture. And, having had this journey in all these different exciting ways, I'm wondering also, we had this question of like, what kept you there? What would have not kept you there? And, now having this journey, what are some of the non-negotiables? And I will say, hearing a few people, even just like this moment we're in, and I think the way that fundraising has shifted, and the way we're talking about, hint, hint, somebody will put it in their community-centric fundraising, right? And these different models and approaches. And so, wondering, and we'll start with you, Anna, around, what do you consider now some of the non-negotiables, or have they changed? What might not keep you around?
I see we're out of our alpha order by first name, but that's good. I'll go with it. Sorry, Allison. I would say the non-negotiable for me, and the thing that's kept me there, is that fundraising is recognized at the highest level and supported. And throughout the campaign, I had the resources that I needed. You have to spend money to make money. You need good counsel. Shout out to Campbell and Company. There needs to be, across every level of the institution, support for the work, and that buy-in piece is really, really critical. So that's not negotiable. For me, I love my development team, and I've worked with amazing people, but being part of that leadership team and having colleagues that you can trust. And I mean, you are doing really hard work together, and you're guiding the strategy for the institution at the highest level. And so for me, during the course of my tenure, it's been a lot of consistency with great leaders. And now, we ended our campaign, and built the museum and opened the museum, and there have been changes, and that is, that's really, it's tough to navigate that without some of the people who've been your partners. So I think that combined right now with a double pandemic is tough. And I always have said all along, I will do this job as long as it's hard. And then I was like, well, I'll do this job until we open the new Burke. And that was a pinky swear that I made with our ED and others on the leadership team. But now I can't deny that it's hard. Our work is so hard right now, and the challenges are unlike anything we've faced before. And so, I'm motivated by a challenge. And so I think using that to, and just, recognizing that our work is really important right now, that consistency for donors is more important than ever when we're disconnected and not able to get together. So right now I'm just kind of owning that the challenges are really different and not what I expected, but that I'm here for a reason at this time still, and need to continue to move the work forward.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Important to be thinking about right now. Margaret, I was thinking having you go next, and then just a reminder for people, if people have questions along the way, feel free to start putting them into the Q&A. We can inform some of the direction here. So, but Margaret, we'd love to hear some of your kind of non-negotiables and journey there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, one of them is sort of that self-development, self-care piece. Like I said, when I sort of started at the museum, I had this mentality and mindset that you had to switch jobs to grow. And I was lucky in that the museum, the self-development and career development and growth kind of fell into my lap in a way. The opportunities were endless. Like, there was more work than we had people. So if you were willing to take the initiative, there was room. So I was able to become, assistant director of development and marketing, and then development marketing director in my first 2 years there. And then eventually the deputy director of development and marketing, and then the deputy director for institutional giving marketing. So that growth was always there. I think what took me a little longer to figure out was that self-care component. That's an area that I've always not been very good about, because I am very good at grinding forward. Like, if there's more work to be done, I will just work harder. And it came to the point, I think, after I had my second child at the museum, that I realized I couldn't do it anymore. So, I just remember being exhausted, sleep deprived, running on fumes, and at that time I was still kind of overseeing the annual giving program, the gala, the membership, the grants and sponsorships, and then also trying to get our marketing and communications program up and running, which, was barely existent. And I just remember at that point, just feeling really, really overstretched. And so it was sort of a confluence of that situation, being tired because I had 2 young kids who kept me up at night. And then our deputy director of operations left. So I no longer had sort of a partner in crime in running our gala. And so then it was all falling onto my shoulders at that time. So we had also, at that time needed to grow a lot of our programs. And we had identified our major donor giving program as a key focus for us to really develop our fundraising. And I remember we sort of faced this time of potentially restructuring so that we could resource that program more adequately. And, I remember having a conversation with my boss, the executive director at the time, or my boss at the time, still the executive director, about, my role and whether or not that would elevate to more of an advancement officer. And I just remember feeling completely overwhelmed that my responsibilities were going to grow without sort of a change in staff support, and at a time when I could barely kind of keep my head above water. And so it was sort of this time of really being honest with myself about my limitations and what I could do. And, fortunately for me, she listened, and she was really understanding. And sort of kind of like Savitha, if you're honest about what you're able to do or what you want, we were able to kind of figure out that what I needed was to take some stuff out of my position. And partly for me to be able to get to a place where I wasn't burnt out, and also really to give the organization the resources it needed to grow that area. Like, I couldn't devote the amount of time I needed to without sacrificing other things. And plus, it was an opportunity to bring in new skills and experiences, new skill sets. So I would say that self-care has sort of become a non-negotiable. I would still say that I'm not great at it, but I've at least had moments where I realized like, I need this for myself to be able to keep going. And, that was sort of at the halfway point in my career at the museum. And so I think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have made it to the second half.
Piggyback on what Margaret was saying about burnout, because I think like self-care is a constant. It will end the day we die. I mean, like you're never going to achieve the epitome of I have been cared for. I can now move on without caring for myself, because that's like humans, right? But I think what you were saying, Margaret, is a tool that I've had from the University of Washington. A class I went to that HR put forward in 2010 was this burnout, how to avoid burnout. And I think having the freedom, having the support to take care of yourself, and having a team that is encouraging that. There's this burnout quiz that I'm going to send around, or if we can put it with the materials of Underdeveloped. It's like a really simple quiz, and I take it on a regular basis, and I ask my team to take it on a regular basis too, because burnout is sneaky, and you think you're doing fine, and then you have like a back spasm and you are totally immobile, and you're like, oh, that's weird. How did that, the body tells you things that your brain is like, keep moving forward. Like Margaret's like charging ahead with everything. And so that, I think having tools like that and having supportive supervisors and colleagues. I mean, if you can't have an honest conversation about how you're really doing and what you really need, and then what you really want, that's hard, and that requires trust. And so I think for me, the non-negotiable has been trust and the ability to feel valued, so that I know that if I have something to say that I know is not going to be popular, it's okay for me to say it because it's important, and it's my responsibility in my role to push the organization forward, especially, as you can imagine, at Seattle Opera right now. We're on the very early phase of moving toward an anti-racist organization, and it is a white European institution. So, that's hard work. And if we can't be uncomfortable, and if we can't say things that may be difficult, you can't make progress. So.
And I can just add to that, just a non-negotiable for me is being clear about what makes you feel valued. And I remember, even though it was over 10 years ago now, my first interview with Climate Solutions, where I said, I am unapologetically a loud woman of color. And if you cannot handle that, then don't even make me go into the next interview. Because I'm not going to hide that part of myself anymore to be at a mainstream organization. Even it's cost me my job at other places when that part of my personality comes out. So just being upfront about that, and the self-care piece too is so important. We have a really, when I started at Climate Solutions, we start at 4 weeks vacation, and after 6 years, you can get a 2 to 3 month paid sabbatical. We are working on an existential crisis, and we need to make sure that our people are taken care of, and that we have the time off to rejuvenate. And especially now, with another pandemic going on, we need to make sure that people feel valued. And some other non-negotiables for me, like I said in my intro, is really being part of the leadership team and having a seat at that table. I have, dear friends who have left development director positions because they have not been at that table, even though they've asked for it. And that is a totally okay reason to leave. It's completely justifiable. If you're asking for something and you're not being heard day after day of why it's important, that, someone in the last panel put it, putting the fundraiser in the equation, we are one of the most critical people or roles in a nonprofit. So, see some of the chats or questions of when you should leave. And if you're not feeling valued, I would say that is a reason to leave, because you are valuable and your time is valuable. And especially now, do what you want to be doing at an organization that values you, because you are worth that.
I'm loving, there's questions. I think people are, starting to touch on some of these questions that people have And just, you know, I am just, you know, both facilitator, but also just sitting here like, Savitha, yes, thank you for saying that. You know, sometimes you just need it said, and I appreciate that. I mean, it sounds so much, and, you know, there's a question here from Carol about giving some specific examples of ways you've helped your staff grow and feel fulfilled so they can stay. I think you've touched on a few, but would love to hear if you have other ones around, you know, you're all incredible leaders and are sharing that space with others. What are ways that you have done that? I think it went away.
You know, I manage three people, and two of my staff do table talks. One is one of the facilitators for table talks, which is, you know, Janet Bogich's. I don't really know how to describe it other than colleagues coming together and really just talking through issues in confidence. And I know both of them have gotten so much out of it, like definitely more so than what we have been paying in that professional development. But really sitting down with each of my team members to figure out what are their professional development goals for the year and how to get them there, whether that is something external like an AFP conference or joining table talks, or whether that's additional responsibilities that they really want to take on, or helping me with more of a major donor kind of role. That's the main part of the fundraising that I do at CS, but you know, just really centering them and what they need to stay and how do we make that work? Because we all know, like from the underdeveloped report, it takes so much more time and money to retrain a new, or sorry, not to train a new person rather than keeping someone and all their institutional knowledge, their relationships, not only with donors, but also with the board and the staff. And especially now in this COVID world, you know, it will be hard to bring someone new on and build that kind of trust and staff collegiality.
I might just add, this is one thing that I just feel like has come from leadership at the highest level at the Burke, but that is that your priority is your own health and your family's health, and that comes first. Family comes first, whatever family is. I don't care if it's a cat or 6 kids. I'm constantly reminding my staff, if, you know, they're worried about getting everything done in the amount of time that they have, or they're working too many hours, I say, you know, we've been around a long time. No donor is sitting around saying, where is my appeal letter, right? Like if your, you know, dog needs to go to the vet, take your dog to the vet. And I think that what you get from that is people that, I mean, they feel valued, and you see them and you recognize what their priorities are, and that makes a big difference.
I think it's also important to just keep that communication open and ask, you know, kind of, because I don't feel like I have the ability to motivate anybody. That comes from within, but I can ask the questions. I can notice things like, I mean, there are some people that I've helped actually discover that fundraising is not for them. They had this idea that this is what it is, but then the reality is you have to feel comfortable asking for money. That seems like a very basic thing, but there are a lot of people who that's a problem. And we all have been on our own journey with money and reconciling like what that means. And we also have to have a level of respect of the relationship that the donors have with the institution. We are just stewards, you know, we're just helping that bridge analogy from the earlier session. You know, we are kind of the connector. And the only way to be a really good connector is to be healthy and honest about what the needs are. So I try to talk to my team individually and have the difficult questions. And I ask for them to come to me with things that they think might upset me or be a burden. There's a lot of concern, I think, from super ambitious and overachieving people to like not be a burden on somebody else. And my whole job, I look at my whole job as removing obstacles and making their experience the best that it can be, because the human resources, I can never replace that one individual. I can fill the position, but that individual is precious. And so that's kind of the fun and really challenging part to all this, I think.
Before I was going to echo everybody, but before I say that, I have to say I'm very impressed with Savitha's ability to do this and chat at the same time and make comments. So I was
the other screen up, that's why.
Oh, I was like, wow, how are you doing this? You know, I agree with all the panelists here. Like the self-care is really important. You know, the goal is really to help your employees and your staff kind of bring their best self to work. And, you know, like Allison said, a lot of that motivation comes internally, but it's also trying to figure out what they need in terms of whether it's self-care, professional development, you know, to kind of keep themselves going. You know, I'll kind of say the flip side too is there are times when, you know, there are staff who want to leave, and, you know, we talked about like not doing longevity for longevity's sake. It's not just about keeping everybody there just so you can keep everybody there. It's really also doing it in a way that makes sense. Like there are times when the values of the staff and the organization doesn't align anymore, or they just don't want to be there for other reasons. And, you know, so it's really kind of doing this in a way that's selective and not just for longevity's sake, if that makes sense. Like the goal is absolutely to retain the staff who want to be there and are doing great work, but not to do it just to do it.
Which I think is such an important point too. We were talking at LCF a little bit ago around kind of, you know, past leaders that we've worked with, and just like you can feel the excitement when somebody is doing something that they want to be doing in a space they want to be doing it in. And sometimes it can just be a shift where someone is kind of like, oh, I'm in the grind, as opposed to, oh, this gives me so much life and love to be in this space. And recognizing those moments, it sounds like, Margaret, it's also, you know, I think really helpful. I also have to just echo completely around family. And, you know, I've been ED for a year and realized so much how self-care and like taking care of family and being there with family is so important. And if my family is my motivator, then I also have to really appreciate them in the way of taking the time to not just do the work, but to also like, that's why I love doing what I do, because I love my family. So why not spend time with them? I mean, there's just kind of these moments. I'm seeing, and I know we've got some more time, I'm seeing this question popping up, and I think it's kind of an expansion here on some tips you can share around negotiating salary and benefits. And I think a few people have also talked about, you know, not just the salary, but the other benefits, the other non-negotiables of what will keep you in this field and in these positions. And I'll open it up to whoever feels very drawn to that question.
I will speak to the salary piece. When I became director of development 2 years ago, I had an opportunity that I hadn't had before in terms of managing the budget, managing the salaries. And I knew that it was also a brief moment. So I tried to, like, where there was so much transition and everyone's like, anything you want, Allison? I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, I think that's, money matters. And, you know, there's that story we have, oh, we're working in nonprofit, we could be making so much more money somewhere else. And I just want to take an abundant look at that and be like, I want to get a competitive wage. I want to be paid what I am valued across the arts and culture sector. And so there is a range. I mean, everybody can do research to know what the range is. But what I've actually been thinking about lately is how that's part of the system and the structure that needs to be blown up. And talk to your supervisor about it. Talk about what you're thinking about. And, you know, I would hate for someone to leave my team because of money without talking to me first. And there have been situations where, you know, a staff member would say, tell me they're leaving, tell me it's because of money. And I know because of all of our other interactions that it was more than that. And I wasn't going to bust my ass to try to get more money because I knew there were other issues. So like money is also kind of a thing that people like to hang on to because it's kind of untouchable. People won't be like, oh, well, you want more money? You know, tell me more about that. Like it's sort of an easy way out, I think. So I try to take the whole perspective of my experience in this individual because usually there aren't any surprises in that case. But I think talk to your colleagues, talk to your mentors. I highly, highly recommend having a mentor. I'm actually looking for a mentor right now, so I'll put that ask out there for the 200 people watching this. But because we all need mentors, and I think that's a great way to like practice and bounce off ideas, but you have to bring it up.
I can share that I've only once in my life negotiated for my salary, and that was last June when I officially took on the deputy role. Had no problem ever negotiating for more vacation anywhere, but the money thing just was really scary, and especially being a woman, being younger, being a woman of color. And then when my boss and I, the executive director, were figuring out this role, I realized, oh God, like I need to ask for more money, and I need to like be prepared. And in addition to what Allison shared, looking at like the United Way surveys and other kind of sector, there's also TREC, which is for environmental organizations, that also has salary survey information. And I created this whole spreadsheet so that I had like backup for the number I was going to ask for. And at the last minute, that meeting with my boss had to be on Zoom because something happened with one of his kids, so he had to be home. And I just remember being like, oh God, now I'm going to talk about this over a computer screen. So I start my presentation and he's like, Savitha, just tell me your number. I know you, and I know that you've researched this and you've talked to, like, just tell me your number because you are worth it. And I said the number and he said yes so easily. I was like, I should have asked for more, but you know, I'm not going to lie, it was one of the hardest things I've done professionally because I don't think that we get training for it. So, you know, practice with your friends. Practice with a mentor, practice with maybe even like a donor. Just practice it. So.
That is so great. Thank you so much for that, Savitha. I know we're coming up to the end. There was a question up here if anybody wants to, and then let's to kind of close it out in terms of like just got moved, but if you've experienced this, what tips can you offer to women of color navigating imposter syndrome in fundraising? I just think that's such a, personally, I just think it's such a, big question. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that one before we kind of close out.
Hard one. I mean, I would just say, probably the best thing that I can think of is just kind of creating a support group around yourself with people who are sort of in the same situation. I think all of us struggle with that in one form or another. So I think having the support and the colleagues help make all the difference.
And I think too, as more of us try to do community-centric fundraising, knowing that is going to be a big shift for all of our organizations, maybe we could all just be a network for each other as we try to really implement that as our organizations, and knowing that, it's not only the POC at organizations who should be helping lead that work, but we also need the white allies in our sector to be helping us too.
Thank you so much. We've got a couple of minutes, and I think there's a lot we've touched on. And if there's any just kind of final pieces from each of you, I know we had talked about kind of like, where do you find yourself now? Even this question of like the best use of 2020 for yourself and where things are now. Maybe we can just go around, and unless somebody is, I will start with you, Allison. I don't know if Savitha, I see you kind of leaning in. But yeah, where do you find yourself now in this time?
That's a tough question for me to answer. It's been a hell of a year, and you know, honestly, we finished the Capitol campaign, moved into the building. It had been 15 months that we'd been in the building. Have another general director. She just celebrated her first year anniversary. I will be honest, I mean, and I'm tired. And I mean, y'all are. And I know that my tired is not like Gordon's tired, because I am a white woman with tons of privilege. And I'm just kind of curious, you know, for me, I have kind of stumbled into all my positions. You know, I've really led with my heart and what works for me and my family. I've had a kid my entire career. So thank God she's moved out of the house during this pandemic. I'm grateful for that. But, you know, I have an 11-year-old kicking around, but I have to think about what's good for my family. Right now, we are all in the arts. My husband works at Seattle Art Museum, me being at Seattle Opera. It's a joy and it's a lot of work. And it's, I'm kind of trying to figure it out. And so that's another thing that I just want to share with everybody. You know, there is this natural time, you know, every 18 months, you know more about the problems at an organization, you know more about the opportunities that are ahead. And it's that balance and really self-examination of what is exciting to you right now. And right now I'm just kind of in this, I feel like in a holding pattern. I'm trying to keep my team together. I'm trying to keep donors informed. I'm trying to do everything I can for the organization and take care of myself. And it's tough. So I don't know what my next step is. And I'm trying to imagine what life beyond Seattle Opera would look like. And I think we're all in this place of like, what is life going to look like beyond the pandemics? I mean, there is hopefully going to be a vaccine for one of them, but the other is going to take a long time. So I'm open to ideas. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm just trying to hold everything lightly and try to make the best of each day. I'm kind of getting very micro about everything.
I don't want to have the last word, so I'm jumping in here. I'm just like at my organization, I know what's going on, but I think bigger picture, if we all have a responsibility if we stay in this field to make change. And the way we do that is together. You know, if there's a funder that's irresponsible and none of us take money from that funder, like we can make change together. And I just feel a responsibility to make positive change and maybe just break everything and build it again if I stay in this field. So that's where my head's at.
And my non-negotiable now is definitely equity. I feel like when I started in this job, my non-negotiable was me and valuing myself. And a lot of that was losing a dream job. And now it's, you know, like Allison's, like the pandemic of COVID, the pandemic of racism. I mean, climate change, like COVID it's a preview, right? And if I cannot help change a mainstream environmental organization to understand the importance of climate justice and racial justice and how we address the climate crisis, then I will have failed at my job that I've been doing for a very long time in this role, but also on an issue that I have been working on since I was 21 in some kind of professional capacity. So I'm, you know, in 2018, I was the only person of color on staff at Climate Solutions. It was really hard, you know, and now out of our staff of 24, 6 of us identify as people of color. You know, that has been tremendous growth. We have 1/3 of our board members identify as people of color. We have a Leading with the Racial Equity Lens statement. We're in the next phase of our EDI plan. We put out a fantastic solidarity statement with Black Lives Matter, but we actually have to back it up now with the work that we do, right? So that's my non-negotiable.
And I think for me, you know, moving from an organization that was very much community based, you know, where social justice was part of the DNA, to a large sort of academic institution where a lot of the history isn't pretty. And so, you know, it's really trying to figure out, you know, in this movement from an organization that wasn't tuned to it to one that's trying to be, like the role that I can play to try to change the course of the ship. I mean, I think that's the challenge that's ahead of us, and for sure for me, even in my own small way there, because there's so many people.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for everybody who is out watching and attending and taking time to continue learning and engaging in conversations together. And a huge, huge thank you. I'm so just amazed, and I'm so lucky that I get to have spent some online time with you four. So thank you, Allison, Anna, Savitha, Margaret. Just so appreciative. And I think, I love that you all really led with so much personal, this, leading with your heart, and also really, pushing it forward, leading with that personal, but then also, that responsibility to make change, that responsibility to center equity, and to really, use our journeys in a way that leverages where we want to be going. So I'm so appreciative. We're talking about development and fundraising, but you all have brought in so much more of yourselves, which I really, really love. Just thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lillian.
Lillian.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you to the panel for this wonderful conversation. And my apologies for mispronouncing your name, Savitha. We're at our last break of the day before session 3, which means it's time for coffee or afternoon screen break, so you can come back ready to tackle the rest of the day. Session 3 will get started at 2:30, so we will see you soon.